So let's watch this. I really do enjoy Ocarina of Time tasks and like showcases and stuff.
So happy to welcome you to the Ocarina of Time Beta Showcase. Our director with us here today is Soren.
Hi, everyone.
Wait, is this the beta showcase? Because I can't watch this. I'm only about the alpha showcases. Am I right, fellas? Because we're all alpha males.
Tools developer and music arranger for the N64 community.
We also have Save
cool.
State.
Hello, I'm an Ocarina of Time scientist, speedrunner, and world record holder.
We only have a couple of quick things
the
to tell you about
Sugma.
really fast. This is
And you called me
an
cringe on stage.
unmodified Ocarina
Yeah,
of
but this is
Time
my
cartridge.
stage.
This is the first release we know
I
of
can be
that came
super
out in the United
cringe.
States, and you wouldn't believe what's in this cartridge. This is a real original N64. The only modification is an RGB mod to get a clean video signal. Otherwise, the console hasn't been modified in any way, and the gameplay is completely unaffected.
And what we'll be showing you today is some
That's really cool.
beta and debug content from Ocarina of Time, including content left on the game cartridge. In order to bring this content to life in the game, we'll be using arbitrary code execution, which we'll explain in a moment. And in order to make that possible, we actually have to work with
It's more challenging around
Speedrunner,
hacks?
Save State, as well as Tasbot.
I
here.
don't know.
We'll
I don't
introduce Tasbot also in a moment, but we're going to get started with Save State.
Yeah,
So I do want to say, I think Ocarina of Time is my favorite like exhibition. I love the glitches. I love all of the beta content that was left in this game. This game is the most. There is like an entirely different world outside of just the actual game that most people play. It's insane.
ready to start?
Yeah.
We'll begin in 3, 2, 1.
Majora's Mask has some pretty cool stuff.
So the game has a pretty long intro sequence, so we'll explain more of what's going on while that's happening.
So first of all, I need to introduce the version 1 of Tasbot. He is brand new at this event in his new form, and I'm so excited to unveil him. If you've never heard of Tasbot before, he is very fascinating. He pretends to be a controller connected to a real console, and he presses buttons extremely fast and extremely precisely, faster than any human ever could. Now, there's a couple of quick things we need to talk about because this run is kind of unique. Most of the time, when you think about a speed run, you're talking about a human speedrunner, like Save State here, doing a run from start to finish as fast as they can with human effort. And we call that an RTA run, or a real-time attack. In the case of Tasbot, he's usually playing back tool-assisted speedruns.
I do want to say, I know Dwango's been doing this for so long. I love how passionate he is about what he does. Like, he is so enthusiastic.
Or a task.
I love it.
A task is made ahead of time with a lot of engineering.
I know he
challenge,
like
effort put
really
into it.
is passionate
And
about
what you're going to
the
see
stuff that
here
he
today
does.
is
It's
fascinating
awesome.
because we can't do just a task in Ocarina of Time for a number of technical reasons. We'll always end up with a desync. So instead, right now we're having Save State play. They'll play through to about a few minutes in, and then at a certain point, we'll connect Tasbot to all 4 controller ports. Tasbot will press a series of button presses very quickly to achieve what we call ACE. More on that in a second. And we'll get to a point where we'll pass control back to Save State. They'll continue playing on controller 1, while Tasbot will continue to be connected to ports 2 through 4. Then, a lot of interesting things are going to happen. You're going to enjoy this. Now, there's a couple of things we need to talk about ACE and SRM. ACE stands for arbitrary code execution, and SRM is stale reference manipulation. I'll let Soren talk about a little bit more about SRM in a sec, but just to give you an idea of what
I know a
ACE
little bit
is,
about it, but
in the context of a computer, you would consider ACE when an attacker
I don't know if I've run
or
this.
someone who's not the owner of a
Or I've
system
seen this.
somehow gets code or gets data on a system.
Okay, I
that
do want to
looks like
say
code.
I have seen I've basically seen most of ZFG's glitch exhibitions. So yeah.
To execute. In the case of a game, typically ACE happens when a talented gamer
this is probably
finds a glitch, is able to get data in a system in a certain way.
Yeah,
and
it was
then
nice meeting you,
convinces the game
Koroks.
system to execute that as code. This is used in certain things like the Nintendo 64 80% of Ocarina of Time. which
Safe
uses an
travels.
ACE.
Very nice
That's right,
meeting
a couple
you.
of instructions that end up jumping to the end credits. So there's a lot of interesting things you can do. Once you have arbitrary code execution, you can do a lot of different things, but you have to get there first, and that's going to take some SRM. I will let Soren describe what SRM is here.
Yeah, so SRM stands for Stale Reference Manipulation. And it's basically a glitch or an exploit that has one main glitch and a bunch of sort of supporting glitches that allows us to achieve arbitrary code execution. So SRM is sort of the process, and arbitrary code execution ACE is the result. And to understand SRM, it's in a computing context. You might hear of this be called use after free. So we're using some resource in memory after it has theoretically already been freed. And so to understand how that works, I first want to explain
kind of just overwrite data, right?
Memory works. So in memory, there is a region of memory called the actor heap. And actors are, let's say, Link or a rock.
Well, yeah, it's important. Like it's literally a task exhibition. Yeah. And what else do you think this is going to be?
When you go through a loading zone into a new area, like right now, the game will load all of the code and all of the data for all the actors in the new area you're going to be in into the actor heap. And it'll load them in an order depending on what was there previously. And
I don't know. I love this stuff. I find it very interesting.
You don't care what order contents are in the actor heap because the game keeps track of where everything is. So it doesn't really matter where everything is. But what we're going to be doing is we're going to be manipulating the actor heap so that where one item is in memory ends up coinciding where something else loads later. And normally that wouldn't matter, but because of some other glitches, that will matter. And I'll explain that in a moment. So the way we manipulate the heap is, let's say if you pick up a rupee or you throw a rock or something like that, that item will be removed from the actor heap, and then something else could load there later. So if you go through another loading zone, then that means how everything else loads will be shifted around. And so you'll...
I'm a smooth-brained idiot. So, I mean, is the memory in this the same as like a computer to where... I mean, everything is still there, but it's just available to write, essentially, or whatever he said earlier. So everything is still there, though. It's just it is available to write over. Is that the same? Is that the same process in like something like this with the memory?
See us like collecting seemingly random rupees and going through a loading zone over and over, and that's basically shuffling around the data in the actor heap so that we can have this particular alignment of particular data to each other later. And what those two pieces of data that we're going to align is, one of them is the entity, basically the temporary actor data for a rock that Link is going to be holding. And then what we get to load in there in place of it is the code for another actor, which is this wonder item. It's basically an invisible rupee that you can collect. And so that might not make sense at the moment, but I'll explain why we need those two to align in memory.
I mean,
so
I know
it. Piece, the actual stale reference manipulation is that we use some glitches to cause an object to unload that Link is holding. And so what this means is Link grabs a rock, and on every frame that Link is holding the rock or whatever, any item that he's holding, the game updates the position and rotation of the rock so that it appears over his head, because he's moving around. It needs to continuously update where the rock is.
I'm following.
And so the way that works is that Link's actor has a pointer to the rock's actor, and every frame Link's actor will overwrite the position and rotation of the rock. And so using a bunch of glitches, we're going to lock the camera and then have Link walk through a loading zone at the same time that the rock unloads. And the result of that is that the rock will unload from memory, but Link won't update his pointer. So he'll still be carrying the now nothing, this unused memory. And every frame, Link's code will be overwriting the position and rotation of now
so basically
nothing, this unused memory. And
basically, he's cheating. And a very unethical way. So that's what I'm understanding here.
Get the code for the wonder item to load into that same slot of unused memory, and then that means Link's code every frame is now overwriting part of the code.
Yeah, I understand now.
So it's not actor data by actual code.
But basically, I'm an idiot. Let me preface this again. So he has the rock above his head, which is basically he picks up a pot. Let's pretend a pot, an empty pot. He puts a rock in it. That's what's over his head. Okay. He's walking. What he's going to do is allow him to continue to carry that pot to put something else in it later, because he's going to be performing like a glitch to where he like loads basically what he just explained. So he's gonna have that pot above his head in order to fill it with something else because of a trick he's about to perform. There, he's making stew.
Get the game to execute that code by, normally having the wonder item on screen. It'll execute that code. It'll run into those instructions that we overwrote, and then it'll run that instruction. And that is instructions that we, as a player, because we can set what that rotation value is, we set up that value, and then we can execute.
The item does not have to be a pot.
And with this technique, we only get to control 2 bytes.
I know it doesn't have to be a pot.
Which is enough to change the target of a branch instruction, which will basically have the game jump to another place.
I was
execution.
Giving an analogy.
Memory, and that other place is going to be Link's rotation.
Because I think in analogies,
so
because it helps
Link's rotation, 2 shorts,
me not
Link's
feel stupid.
Sword rotation and current rotation, or something like that.
Third strongest mole,
And,
thanks for the 5.
That also encodes an instruction, and we're going to use that to encode a jump instruction that will jump to some memory that is holding the current state of all of the controllers. So that is just memory holding all of the buttons and control
Yes,
sticks.
the pot
And so that's where we'll
signifies
switch
like
to
the
Tasbot.
value of memory
So
that you can
Tasbot
fill
will
back
input,
up. That's what I was trying to get
controller
at.
input that
I thought I
is,
did a good job. Okay.
That
Hydromis, thanks for
will
32.
be, interpreted by the game as normal controller input, but will also be interpreted by the game as code. So just to go over this path again, we're talking about.
I've seen some of
code
this stuff.
execution
I don't
normally
know
goes
what's
through the wonder
changed
item.
though.
We overwrote an instruction from holding this rock, and that will then jump to Link's rotation, and then Link's rotation will jump to the controllers.
Very
and we'll be
weird.
Executing controller input as code.
I'm assuming
and then
you can
Tasbot
see
will
when
take
like the
over and do some
camera,
interesting things with that.
you can see when everything
So we're
loads.
just,
I assume they work with
finishing
that
this setup here.
to like unload the.
Gotta do
Wait,
some
let me just
few
watch.
glitches here to lock the camera. So the camera is.
You can't go
locked
on
in
water
sort of
when you
an
do this,
extreme
right?
State now. Gonna go over and change the angle of the camera and get the camera locked into a different place.
Okay. I've seen this now, and it stays there, right? What? No.
Now we're going to pick up this rock and make the camera switch at the same time. Now we have to walk off screen holding the rock and manage to navigate out of the...
Okay, I have a question. What is happening when... So, by the Deku tree, there's a trick performed, and then over here, there's another load that's being activated. Why, when he picks up the rock or hits the rock or whatever, how come the camera shoots back this way? Is it just because the next action performed is supposed to be like this or something? Is that what it is? Is there, or they lock the camera, then the rest of the time is moving around? Yeah, they haven't done any of that yet, right? I mean, I know some tricks in this. They're bigger the rock, then the camera moves far away through a glitch, so the rock unloads. Then Link just finishes picking up the rock. Okay, I won't get too deep into it. I'll probably watch another video, but walking while talking, they lock the camera. Well, he reads the signs, and then he goes off camera to despawn the rock in his hand, so he's only holding the point of the rock. Okay, and that's when I was starting to explain the pot analogy. So he basically emptied his pot. Perfect. Now I can make some stew. Okay, so this is what got rid of the memory, but that it's still available to be filled. Okay, I get it.
Loading zone, holding the rock.
Sure.
without any visual reference.
Sure, Oats.
So just take a moment here.
Okay.
And so now you'll see we're holding nothing. So Link is updating this unused memory.
Okay.
Now that we've crossed back over a loading zone, that memory is filled in with this the code for the wonder item. And when we put down the rock, that's the last time we've updated that rotation value, which is now overwriting part of the code. And now we have to set up Link's rotation. So, you know, if you were really lucky, you could just push the control stick and make
I've seen some of this.
rotate it in
This is how they
exact
do
direction,
any percent
but,
now, isn't it?
You know, we have to use a setup for this. So,
Except
this is
they're going to
we're
be
basically
doing
a
different stuff.
series of maneuvers
Yeah.
that will each move.
Yeah, so this is any
angle by a
percent
certain
stuff. So
amount in a
I've
certain
seen some of
direction.
this.
And so we do this series of maneuvers, and it will, you know, result in Link having an exact value for the rotation, which will encode this jump
Yeah,
instruction.
it's a novelty run. I mean, I wouldn't be able to run this. I'd go crazy. But I mean, it's for what it is. It's very
So
cool.
Almost ready for Tasbot here. We just have to have we're buffering a
This-
turn.
this
We have
is
to
how
have
they
Link
do-
aiming in the exact right location here.
This is arbitrary code execution, or they're
That's it.
setting up
Yep.
for it.
So now I'm going to switch controller 1 over to Tasbot. So
Which-
Tasbot is now connected to all 4 controller ports.
Starting Tasbot.
And we're going to
Which
play
is
a
what they
short
do-
task movie here, about 20 seconds or so.
This allows them to do the arbitrary
So-
code.
Right now, the game is
Okay.
you know, interpreting the controller input as Link wiggling around, but also interpreting the controller input as code. At first, it's 1 instruction per frame, and then it goes a bit faster. And after a few seconds here,
Thank you.
you'll see a little green bar in the corner of the screen. That means this was successful.
Yeah, straight up hacker man.
That was
Yeah.
the big moment, though you may not have realized it. And so now we've switched.
This is so weird.
So we've switched controller 1.
Like,
back
literally
to
hacker
Tasbot-
man, yeah.
Sorry, back to save state. So they will continue playing on controller 1 for the rest of the run. But Tasbot remains connected to controller ports 2, 3, and 4 this whole time. And so we just had to go into a house to clear out some residual glitches that were active for the arbitrary
developer
execution. So here's our first piece
console,
of
right?
content to show here. This is the inventory editor. This was created by the developers to you know, be able to more easily test the game and you know, set up Link's state. We basically just had to write 1 byte to memory in the pause screen to turn on the inventory editor and be able to use it. So you may have actually seen this in the Majora's Mask speedruns, at least at one point. Yeah, so we don't have to go to the dungeons.
don't feel like
and get
I've
the
seen-
items legitimately. We just give ourselves all the
Maybe
items we're gonna
I
need throughout
have.
the rest of the run.
I feel like this is a little different. Oh. Yeah, basically just gave himself a bunch of.
So this
items.
piece brings us to our next piece of content here. This is the R-Wings from Star Fox 64.
Yeah, I'm sure we've all
You
seen
may
this.
have actually seen this. Sorry, you may have actually seen this at home. If you have a Game Shark, you can
I'm
run
in.
a couple of Game Shark codes and get it to spawn. The developers of Ocarina of Time back in 1998 created the R-Wing to be able to test physics for the Fire Dragon Volvagia. And it has its own animations and sounds and everything. But we were able to dispatch it with the boomerang pretty easily here.
Thank you for the 16. And the
So that
13.
brings us to our next piece of content.
Wrong
here.
game.
So some of you may have played
Yeah,
Zelda
if you had a
1 on the
Game Shark,
original
you could do
Nintendo.
that. Yeah.
And on Zelda 1, the Lost Woods was a place that
There's over 2 million inputs that were just input by Tasbot to recode the game. Okay, so there's what? So inputs can be used numerous times in one frame. Yeah. Okay. So really, 2 million inputs.
you could go, just like here in Ocarina of Time.
You know what I mean, right?
And
Does
it
that
was
make
one
sense?
screen with
Because this
exits
game runs
north,
at
south,
20
east,
frames
and
per
west, just
second,
like
but
this
it's
first
like
room here in
20
Ocarina of Time,
repeating
and then the Lost
frames.
Woods in Ocarina of Time. And in Zelda 1,
But-
you had to learn a code from some NPC or something.
I didn't know you could like have
north, west,
just like a-
southwest. You had to, go through the exits
1,000
of the woods
inputs
in
per
order,
second or whatever.
Northwest, southwest. If you did, you would get through the woods successfully.
I figured it
And
just
if
wouldn't
you didn't, you would
like
fail and you would
work.
get thrown out of the woods. But here, if we go north in the first room in Kokiri and Lost Woods, we just immediately get thrown out of the woods. And so you would think that that means that this code can't possibly apply to Ocarina of Time. But actually what we're doing here is we're getting lost out of a north-facing exit, and then getting lost out of a west-facing exit,
Wait.
and then out of a south exit, and then a west exit. So it's the same code, but it's actually
Wait, so right now the Tasbot's still just inputting shit? It's still just coding?
getting
Okay,
lost
that's really cool.
multiple times. And
That's
this is
crazy.
the last one, the west exit here. And so we just have to re-enter the woods a 5th time. You hear a Zelda chime. That means we've unlocked something. So, you know, it isn't really clear if maybe nobody tried repeatedly getting lost in all these different exits in this pattern, or maybe if they did, that they didn't know where to look next, because you'll miss him if you don't know where to look. This is a beta Kokiri. This is our next piece of beta content to show here. There's
what the
actually
heck?
several beta Kokiri bodies and a few different beta Kokiri heads left on the cartridge. This is actually, you know, actual beta content left on the cartridge.
So this is just from
And
the
so this
normal
beta
game.
this
That's
beta
why I love
Kokiri
this
is,
shit.
Looking for,
This is just the
some kind of
normal
bug, but
cartridge.
He doesn't want the bugs that we have in our bottle. He wants some flying bug. Something like flowers. So we've got to, you know, this is typical, you know, child Link side quest. We got to find a bug for a Kokiri. You know, this is what Link
Not
has to
quite.
go through.
Okay, well,
So
this is all...
this brings us to our next piece of beta content here. So in Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, you may have
There
noticed
is
butterflies in the
no-
games, sometimes fluttering over a
They're
hidden
not
grotto
adding content.
or around a torch in Majora's Mask or something like that. And in Ocarina of Time,
Well,
left on the cartridge,
I don't
there
have-
is
I don't
a
want to
3D
explain this.
model for the get item model for a butterfly.
Yeah.
And there is also an entry in one of the item tables for a butterfly.
I'm sure they
with all
will,
of the other vital,
but this is
bottle
beta
items.
footage.
So
Don't
it's
spoil
pretty
anything.
clear that at some point in
Watch it.
development, it was intended that you could catch a butterfly in your bottle. And so, you know, here, this is, you know, the shop normally doesn't have a butterfly on sale. But since we have talked to the beta Kokiri and he's looking for a butterfly, we can talk to the shopkeeper, and he will now respond to this.
And we're gonna try.
I usually don't carry.
Har, har, har.
So here's the butterfly 3D model that's left on the cartridge. It's actually ironic. There is a bug in the display list for this butterfly. There's actually an issue with one of the texture formats.
Yeah, this
so we had
isn't...
to patch that with arbitrary code execution. So now we have to
Oh,
give this
okay.
butterfly to the beta Kokiri. Fortunately, we have a warp point nearby.
It's there,
Just have
but
to head to the
they're
forest
literally
here.
adding... Okay, this is cool.
And this
Yeah.
will be a good time for a couple of donations.
Absolutely. The Yeti sends us a breathtaking $10,000 donation. And they say, hey all, Yeti here. You may not know this, but we are pretty good friends
Yeah, they're
with
fixing
Tasbot.
bugs as they
Tasbot
go.
is
This-
actually
yeah,
Yeti's
this is
emergency
crazy.
contact. Yeti has notifications turned on Twitter for Tasbot. Tasbot will be the best bot at the Yeti's wedding. One day, if that ever happens. Anyways, we're all very proud of everyone who donated towards this amazing Tasbot block. You are amazing. Thank you, Yeti. We have a $5 donation from Shaden who says, donation power.
What's up with the
every
camera? It's
donation
freaking
has
out every
power.
now and again. It has like a...
And thank you, Black Turtle, for
Issues
the
with
$25
exposure.
donation who says,
Thank you.
Tasbot,
Thank you.
best bot. Need more Tasbot.
Okay, so
Time for
back
one
to
or
this...
two more?
No, we're here. Got it. Thank you. Here we are.
Where's-
with
where's
beta
that
Kokiri again.
emote?
We're going to give him the butterfly.
Okay, so this is a little side quest with beta stuff.
Seems like Mido is pretty unpopular around these parts.
There.
So this magic powder is actually a normal Adult Link trading item, except it's normally called Odd Potion. The magic powder, you know, even though it's pretty clearly some sort of, you know, powder on a napkin or something like that. The magic powder was introduced in Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening, which was
Sugar.
the game right before Ocarina of Time. So I'm not really sure why they translated it as Odd Potion. But anyway, we're gonna, normally this is adult-only item, but we have it now, and we're gonna use it here in the same place that, that Adult Link normally uses it. Excuse me, uses it. And we're just gonna say no to some of the dialogue prompts so you can see the alternate outcome.
Okay, so this is all beta stuff, right? Obviously, because you don't get magic powder. This is an adult quest now. So in the beta, the quest
Yeah, Mido.
was to give that donk
A popular guy around here.
looking thing a butterfly, which gives you the powder. Okay, and this is like the side quest. Grumble. All right.
So this brings us to our next thing to show here. As many of you may know, in Ocarina of Time, there is a mask trading side quest. The masks don't do too much outside of the side quest. They have a couple of small functions. They change some dialogue. They don't really have any serious magic power. We just upgraded the Gerudo mask here.
Thank you.
We're going to do the same thing for the bunny hood. Save State has done a little inventory manipulation glitch here.
Yeah, I'll probably just watch that on my own. Watch it.
Allow us to equip two different masks at the same time, which isn't normally possible. So we're going to upgrade the bunny hood also. So now our masks are powered up. And I'll explain that more in a moment here.
Wait.
But the bunny hood now will have its behavior from...
Was this actual beta stuff in the game? You could upgrade your masks with this side quest with the magic powder? Or your whatever? I do want to know this. I mean, no, I just watch. Okay, fine.
Allowing us to run very quickly, which will be very helpful here.
It is a speed run event after all.
So yeah, I'm not sure if you would call this beta content exactly. It was clearly content that was, being thought about by the developers while they were developing Ocarina of Time.
Link is very fast.
To have these masks and have them have magic powers, but it was left in Ocarina of Time in this vestigial state of this mask trading side quest, and then expanded into a full, complete new behaviors for all the masks in Majora's Mask.
Okay.
So we're going to be heading over to...
That answered my question.
Gerudo Valley, and we have time for a couple more donations.
Okay,
Certainly.
so literally
Gilbert
just answered my question.
$250, and they say Metroid Dread Boss Rush sounds dope. Will we hit the incentive? I hope. With Samus and skill, the bosses will kill. Will this speedrun be boring? Nope. And thank you one more to...
I'm kind of disappointed that they didn't have this quest in Ocarina of Time.
I hope I'm not too late for the Limerick train. No, you're never too late for that train.
Because this would have been awesome to have.
There once was a speedrun event that donated every cent, called SGDQ, broke some records too, and prizes presented by Cent.
I'll let you know if the questions aren't rhetorical, okay? When I was asking if this was left in, my question was answered.
One more?
This individual did say that this is like residual stuff that they just implemented into Majora's Mask.
Just run over to the other side of the bridge here. So normally there's this Gerudo guarding.
But this is in the game.
Normally, if you
or
wear the Gerudo mask and
was.
go up to her, she says, "You've got guts, kid," coming around here wearing something like that. But now that the mask is upgraded and it's actually magical, she thinks we are a
Sauron, right? Yeah, sorry. I know they have names.
And she'll open the gate for us.
I'm not trying to.
You can also get over here with speedrunning strategies, but that's
keep them
not
nameless.
We're just going to talk to a couple of the guards for some flavor text here.
Bet you had some bountiful crops. Are answering your questions? I know. Our fortress seems to be smaller every day. Same. Someday I suppose there'll be nothing left.
But tough life out here in the desert. Got to make sure they don't see us switch our mask again. We have time for maybe one long or two quick donations here.
Yeah, certainly. Wiggly Boots donates $25. They say, Tasbot was a major reason why I started watching GDQ years ago. So great to see Dwango, Tasbot, and the rest of the team still making amazing things happen. I agree. Save State, Soren, Dwango, y'all are incredible. Give it up for them, y'all.
They do have a ROM hack, right, of a lot of the beta
$10 and
stuff. I thought someone made a ROM hack for this.
Less than 3.
Royal family of Hyrule has forsaken our
home. Here, so you can see more of their backstory. Normally don't get to interact with them as Child Link.
Huh. Oh, child, I pity you. Soon you will have to...
Wouldn't want to be them. And here's Naburo.
Pick something.
Sage of Spirit.
My kid, what are you doing
This is, her home, basically.
Oh, pick a side, okay.
So it looks like our disguise is working. Oh, maybe not.
Damn. Yep, you've been caught.
Sounds like Ganondorf is not popular around here either.
Ooh, some foreshadowing. Sorry if you want me to read this. You know what lies beyond the desert? I'll read it. There's a place there known as the Desert Colossus. This is really cool. Yeah, because this is... we Gerudo have used it as a temple for generations, but it was built by the ancient sages. Yeah, this is a whole ass cutscene. Two-sided dungeon made for a time-traveling hero who can go from child to adult and back.
So what this is about is there's a couple hints in the game code looking at it that perhaps at some point in development, the Spirit Temple was actually intended to be completed by Link, going back and forth in time, like within the dungeon, not just doing half of it and then going.
I did know that because there's like hints towards that just in the vanilla game, right?
Link would need some way to go back and forth in time, without pulling the Master Sword, and Nabooru would need to be able to teach him this ability that he would need. She won't take no for an answer, but that's pretty common for NPCs in Ocarina of Time. So Nabooru plays the Shinai. This is the instrument that you'll hear in the background music of the Spirit Temple. I'd like to think that the Spirit Temple music is just Nabooru off practicing somewhere in the halls.
This sounds very much like
talk about this ocarina,
the bagpipes in Majora's Mask.
Just a moment, after we're done with this.
Yeah, this is really cool. Yeah. Do you actually have to play all of that? It would have that was programmed that way. That's funny.
Didn't leave this in the final game.
That's really cool though. There's like a whole cutscene, dialogue. You learn the Song of Time in this. That's pretty sweet.
Learned the song. It represents courage, and it will allow us to change between child and adult without having to pull the Master Sword, and that will be very important. By the way, we'll just speak to Nabooru. She says she'll see us again in a few years. We'll see about that. So yeah, about the Ocarina system you saw there. So in the game, normally, if you can play the Ocarina, and there are 5 notes that are used.
Yeah, they're not required.
Songs that you can play with 5 buttons on the controller. But you can also press R and Z to go up and down by a half step, and you can press the control stick up or down to go up or down by a whole step. So you can play the full Song of Time like you saw here, but it will never be detected by the game as an Ocarina song, because the game has actually 2 different systems in the code for handling Ocarina songs. One is just for the 5 notes, and one is for all of them.
Oh.
So what we did here is I made a couple patches with arbitrary code execution to basically make it that it was using...
I wasn't even thinking about the sharps and the flats. That's really cool. Because, yeah, you can do that, but no song requires it. So that's what all that extra stuff is.
Use the system that supports all of the notes for all of the Ocarina playback.
That's really cool.
These 2 systems sort of half and half for different things. So this brings us to our next thing to show here. This is the Running Man. You may know him from Ocarina of Time. He has, sort of a late game.
Can you actually beat this, the Running Man now?
Start this race with him. And
I've seen a lot of stuff about all this.
You run to the end of the race as fast as you can. You can get on.
That's a rhetorical question.
You get to the end of the race in a bridge in the Lost Woods, and he'll already be there.
I won't look at the
And
chat.
he'll say, you did well, but I beat you by 1 second. And even if you use speedrunning strategies to freeze the timer and end the race with a time of 0, he still says that he beat you by 1 second, and he's still there. So that means that this Running Man must be doing some sort of, time manipulation shenanigans in order to be able to beat us all the time. But now we have the ability to do some time manipulation shenanigans of our own.
He's gonna look at chat.
So basically what we've done is we started the race, and what we're gonna do is go back in time 7 years by playing the Ocarina, go to the end of the race, and then go forward in time 7 years, and we will be at the end of the race before the race started. And so hopefully we'll finally be able to beat him. By the way, if you thought of this, many years ago as a possible way and went to, put the Master Sword back in, that will stop the timer.
That's funny.
But this will not.
I remember seeing some of this, like, can you beat the Running Man? And like, even if you like.
So you see we have a timer that is corrupted. It is a very large negative number because we were back in time 7 years before the beginning of the race. It's you know, trying to draw the number, but it's reading graphics out of bounds.
He's joking, right?
And also, as Child Link, we have access to the bunny hood, so we can run more quickly to the end of the race. Oh, that's the Child Link version of the Running Man. He doesn't know what's coming. So we have time for 1 long or 2 short donations here.
Sure, how about like 5 quick ones? We have a $1,000 donation from Tareen with no comment. A $500 donation from Maybe Root with no comment. A $250, a $500, a $500, and a $1,000 donation from Anonymous with no comment.
Yeah, skill issue.
And a
yeah.
$1,234.56 dollar donation from Sam D. Thank you so much, with no comment.
All right, so here we are.
Well,
Here we
it's
are at the end of the race. This is the bridge that's the end of the race. And we're just gonna.
But this is
work
all
back
still
forward in
beta
time,
stuff.
7 years.
right. Yeah, like the cutscene that we saw. That was. It's in the game, but they also fix
You see
a
our
lot
timer
of the
is still corrupted, but
problems.
it's actually
Okay, I see Chad put in
-7,
emote only.
6,
Whatever.
5, and here he comes.
Slow ass bitch.
And the timer ends on 0.
What? Impossible? I'm the fastest man in Hyrule. How do you get here before
So
I
he's
did?
not happy that we finally beat him.
Damn, he's squaring
So
up.
Any NPC in Ocarina of Time,
Dude,
if
meet
we
me in the middle of the
complete their
field.
challenge or
I'm
help them
squaring
out or
up.
anything like that, they have to give us a reward. So let's see what the Running Man has for us here. And since we're Adult Link, no more bunny hood, so we have to use traditional movement techniques.
Traditional, of
Traditional
course.
for speedrunners.
Don't try this at home, kids.
This is a fun speed game, though. It is pretty cool.
So here is our reward from
damn.
the Running Man. This is a beta item actually left in the cartridge. It's a giant rupee, and this is actually what it does in game. Is it blows up? That's
this
actually its behavior.
motherfucker. Oh, damn.
he is
Please
not
tell me you
happy
can,
about
like,
that.
blow his ass up.
But we'll be fine. He's so fast that we can't shoot him with arrows. He just runs out of the way. He'll dodge a lot of stuff. We can avoid, you'll see we got knocked back, but we didn't take damage from that. We can shoot him a couple times when he's getting up there.
Got the
Also,
milkman
he's vulnerable
voice.
to crouch stabs if you hit him at the right time.
Okay,
He doesn't know how to jump over
this
those.
is like, is this different AI? Yeah, he's donk running.
Get a couple hits in there.
Yeah,
There we go.
this is pretty
Don't
nuts.
worry, even if this save state will be fine at this, but even if we weren't, we still have the inventory editor. We can give us ourselves unlimited hearts and everything. So
He's gonna need more hearts? He's this strong? Holy shit. I wasn't wrong when I said he was squaring up in the middle of the
just need 1 or
field.
2 more hits here.
Oh my god.
Damn.
The arrows don't do a lot of damage. Stabs do a lot more.
Oh no.
We did cancel the damage from it though.
Yeah, this is actually
Z-targeting
insane.
makes things worse, so we're just not doing that.
Yeah, you're gonna get the Triforce and actually beat the game here.
I think I need like literally just 1 more hit now.
There we go.
There we go.
That might be the hardest
Not
boss
an
in the
easy
game.
boss.
Yeah.
No, not at all. Very tricky.
Now harvest his organs, of course. He's got a great heart, clearly. You're a better cheater than I am. Never thought anyone would find
So
a
now we get
power
to see some of the
like the
Running
one I
Man's
did.
backstory, why he was able to beat us all these years.
Oh no, interview with Oprah incoming. Oh no, this.
Found some object here. It's dropped by someone fleeing town, I guess when the castle was attacked. This golden locket. Not sure that's how physics works, but
It's a video game.
the redemption arc.
That's crazy.
So here we have the Sage's
Andy,
Charm.
thank you so much.
This has enhanced our magic power. It represents power. You can see it has doubled our magic bar again.
I appreciate it very much, Andy. We watched my run, and I really wanted to watch this because I didn't get to watch this live. Thank you so much for the 70 months. Try not to spoil anything if you've seen this, because yeah, this is all very interesting. Yeah, a huge magic bar. Thank you, Andy. I appreciate it. How is Andy? Because 70 months ago he subscribed. All right.
Power. So here we have the Sage's Charm.
Oh.
This has enhanced our magic power. It represents power. You can see it has doubled our magic bar again. And it says equip the Sage's offerings. So we'll do that in just a moment after we watch the Running Man run off into the sunset.
Yeah, this is really cool so far.
So,
Normally, Ocarina of Time stuff is
this is another
pretty
beta
sweet.
feature from Ocarina of Time. This was shown in pre-release screenshots and videos, the ability to equip the medallions.
I just need to set it up.
So the original version of Ocarina of Time, the magic spells were the medallions. You would equip them to see and then use them. So for example,
I'd be down, though.
medallion was replaced.
I'd be down to whoop
that
you up a
magic
little
spell
bit.
was converted into Din's Fire, but there were all 6 of them. They all did interesting things. This was also back when there was a wind temple and some other beta stuff.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
We have a moment here, but I'm going to let dwangoAC shout out the Tasbot community.
Yes, indeed. But before I do that, I want to tell you about that shirt again, because it's just that awesome. If you head over to the Yeti, you will see the version
Janjo?
1 Tasbot shirt. This is our first outing with our new Tasbot form that we've worked on so hard over the last couple of years. He looks really cute on that shirt. I had an update from the Yeti a couple of hours ago. They'd already sold over 1,000
So
of those,
if
and
we
that
can,
means that alone.
yeah, to make this, if people are coming in, so this is the vanilla cart with input, the controller ports 2, 3, and 4 being used by a Tasbot, aka it is inputting. It's just putting inputs into the game, basically writing arbitrary code as we go along. So this is all on the actual cartridge on an N64.
Is donating $5 per shirt for that. So this is for charity, folks. Go out and get them. This is the only time you can get
Emote
these at this
only.
event.
Oh,
also, we have
no.
the Tasbot community at Discord.
Said too much.
.gg/Tasbot. And as another quick shout out, the folks before us, they're over at oh gosh, I almost forgot their name. P2SR, discord.gg/P2SR. Those folks are not necessarily associated with the Tasbot community, but they had a fantastic task earlier, and I wanted to make sure I gave them a shout out as well. So again, if you're interested in tool-assisted speedrun content being run on real consoles, head on over to discord.gg/Tasbot.
All right.
So we're just going to head in here to Zora's domain. Before we get in there, I'll mention, so in Ocarina of Time, normally when you complete one of the Adult Link dungeons, you dispel Ganon's curse on the area. So for example, in Kokiri Forest, it was originally covered in monsters, and then when you beat the Forest Temple, all the monsters go away. And so for the Water Temple, the water in the lake
No,
was lower.
I mean, I appreciate the comments. It's fine.
When you beat the Water Temple, the water is raised, but the ice in Zora's domain never melts, even though this was Ganondorf's curse.
Mm-hmm.
But now that we have the Fire Medallion on C, we can use the powered up fire and melt the ice in Zora's domain. And this is very important because as child,
Just like that,
we
huh?
can't dive deep enough to get where we're going, and then as adult, you cannot use the iron boots because there's a layer of ice. Not going for that exit. We're actually going for this one down here. This is an alcove you can see, but now it's actually an exit, and it will lead us to
This is a secret light
the
temple
Unicorn
shit, right?
Fountain.
Oh no, I thought there was like a light temple beta shit as well. They might show that.
So this is a beta area that was shown in pre-release videos and screenshots. It's basically Similar design to to the Fairy Fountain
Or Light Temple. Maybe that was just like
unicorn statue here in the middle.
what they said it was. This is cool, yeah.
And there's also the pedestal of the Ocarina here. This is a real beta item actually left on the cartridge. That we
This is at
just had to
Jabu's too, I
spawn
think,
in
right?
there.
Yeah.
And it is used as an Ocarina prompt, of course. So this is another beta item. This is a 3D model actually left in the cartridge. This is the Beta Great Fairy. This is the original design for the Great Fairy. We just had to, it was actually in the same object file as the normal Great Fairy.
It's like those things from
And there's beta pre-release screenshots and videos of the Beta Great Fairy here
what's that
in
one
the Unicorn
show?
Fountain. She's going to teach us a song that represents wisdom.
Okay. It's like they're the sirens. It's like something with wolves. Dances with wolves. No, that's a fucking... Those things that like hover around and like kill everything. It's like a show on something. Hey, yeah, fuck
So
it.
this
It doesn't
song,
matter.
The Overture of Sages was actually shown in an early rumor about
Yeah,
Ocarina
Raised
of
by
Time
Wolves.
from 1999. It wasn't really clear if this rumor was true or not because, you know, there were some issues with the screenshots. They looked a little bit photoshopped. But, you know, here we are learning the Overture of Sages from the Beta Great Fairy in the Unicorn Fountain.
Yeah, this is really cool. So what does this do?
And she tells us here to play the song before the Blade of Destiny. It means the Master Sword, of course.
Oh, okay.
You'll hear that she still has the final version of the sound effects, the laughter, so oh well. And
Then-
so we're going to do exactly what she told us, which is go and play this song in front of the Master Sword. We have a warp there.
You'll see. Oh, I'll see.
And so, you know, it's very important. We're Adult Link.
You guys are really building
but
this
we
up.
became Adult Link
Like,
without
there's
ever
going to
pulling
be
the
a
Master
huge
Sword.
reveal or
And that means
something.
that we never opened the Door of Time. We never pulled the Master Sword. Ganondorf never got into the Sacred Realm. And the world isn't destroyed. This is how it looks like normally as Child Link, but we're Adult Link here in this scene. So we gave ourselves the 3 spiritual stones in the inventory editor at the beginning, so we have them. So we're just going to go and, you know, open the Door of Time, sort of like normal, but now as Adult Link. And the full Song of Time has replaced the normal Song of Time in our
That would be
inventory. That's
so
why we have to play it
tedious
here. Normally we
to
just
do.
play the normal Song of Time. So this is a normal cutscene, except normally only Child Link can be in this cutscene. And in fact, if you can see the spiritual stones clip into Link's head there, because he's taller than he should be. And in fact, if you use speedrunning strategies, skip the Door of Time, and get into this cutscene as Adult Link normally, the cutscene will play out, but the Door of Time does not open.
Yeah, you have to do this every
We
time,
looked at
I
the
think,
code.
right?
It looks like it's probably just an oversight on their part, but it would be nice to think that it was a, you know, an anti-cheat measure where, you know, if you speedrun your way here, you can get your cutscene, but you can't get your door.
Given how broken this game is, I don't think it was the latter.
This is another cutscene that normally only Child Link can be in.
This better be the Milkman.
And again, we have the big Goron sword on our back and in our inventory. We've never had the Master Sword in our inventory. Master Sword is still here in front of us.
We're just going to do emote only for a bit. Okay.
We're not going to be pulling
I'm
the Master
watching.
Sword. We're going to be playing the Overture of Sages in front of the Master Sword, as the Beta Great Fairy told us.
All right, I just want to look at the chat. You don't have to do emote only, but
It says warp to the Sacred
just
Realm.
don't spoil anything. If you do spoil something, you're going to get timed out for like an hour. This is a cool song. You guys were saying this song isn't cool. It's only for a few minutes? Okay, fine. We'll watch this.
So here we are in the Chamber of Sages. So we got the full Song of Time, which represented courage. We got the Sage's Charm, which represented power. And we got the Overture of Sages, which represents wisdom. So our heart is now in balance between the three virtues. And so you'll notice these side platforms here in the Chamber of Sages. These are actually in the scene normally. You'll see them in the cutscenes, but normally we don't get control in this scene. And normally we certainly don't get bridges that will lead us to the side platform.
What? Was this?
So the sages are each giving us their blessing and creating these bridges that allow us to climb higher in the sacred realm.
This is awesome. Hey, Dwango. Thank you very much for this. Always a pleasure to watch your work and what you do. Especially with Ocarina of Time. This is definitely one of my favorite games when it comes to, you know, the beta stuff and all the glitches, and really sweet. Hey, thanks for the gifted sub to Dwango. Okay, no one has to answer this. This was supposed to be in the original game.
Love at first sight.
You know, I mean, or is this just all are we just writing our new game here? Is this, you know, I'll figure out after, because this is like my imagination as a kid coming to life, like all of this shit, like with the platforms and, you know. That's why I love Ocarina of Time. It's very nostalgic to me. There's always like secrets that you can never do, but you always thought you could do. You know, shit like this it's cool.
So the Sage's Charm did indeed belong to Impa. She dropped it when she was fleeing the castle. So those are the 6 sages. There's one more platform up here.
I swear to God, if this brings us to the beginning of Skyrim or whatever, I just realized that's probably what's gonna happen, dude.
Sounds like Sheik maybe has some idea of what we're up to here.
Next, you're gonna tell me that this is Zelda or something.
I think we all want to know the answer to that question.
What is this? What in the world? Okay, I don't believe that this is the actual game.
Before we go through this story,
we're writing new games right now. There's no way
that this is an original unmodified copy of Ocarina of Time, and this is a real original N64. We haven't modified anything about the game in advance.
Okay, well,
all we've done is press buttons on 4 controllers very quickly and very precisely with the help of Tasbot. So this really is vanilla Ocarina of Time, just with a lot of glitches and a lot of very careful building on those glitches to create everything you're seeing here.
Okay.
Folks, enjoy.
Okay, what is about to happen here? You can let people talk, Chad. I won't look. Soon? Okay. After 23 years, the dreams of millions of players around the world have finally come true. So this is beta. Wow, what a lame. Good thing they didn't, you know, have this be in the actual game.
So as you may have guessed by now, this run actually is not called Ocarina of Time Beta Showcase. The true name of this run is Triforce %, because this is how to actually get the Triforce in Ocarina of Time. But that isn't quite the end of the run. We have a bit more to show you today. Please take a look at this.
I can't even imagine the work that was put into this. This is insane.
So what do you think we should wish for?
Well,
See the
getting
future.
a high roll is a lot of responsibility.
Yeah, rupees, I gotta tell you, folks, I think you should be giving your rupees
Yeah,
to Doctors Without
for
Borders
sure.
instead.
So, shout out to Doctors Without
what
Borders, of course.
Dwango
So what do you
said.
think, folks, should we see the future?
I know there's a massive team. Feel free to put any links that you want, Dwango, because yeah, this is really awesome. So I mean, I don't know if there's any like anything to where people can be credited properly. Am I going to cry? No, I'm not going to cry, but this is really cool. I like this a lot. Okay. All right. It's a new game, dude. I am still expecting Skyrim. But this is all just because of inputs. What? Dude, this looks better. No, it doesn't. If this was, I was thinking this was Skyward Sword at first. I'm gonna say this looks better than Skyward Sword.
This is not a video. This is the N64.
This is crazy. Yo, Nintendo's shutting this down. This is the actual introduction to Breath of the Wild 2. This is trouble.
It seems you've managed to bring together a great number of people. I'm so happy to see this.
Oh,
I know they're out there, but
I have questions.
it would be nice if we could see them, don't you think?
I have questions about voice acting. If this is the original game.
All right, everyone, type "here together" in the chat.
Now is a fantastic time to subscribe. Don't forget, you can gift sub people. If you are subscribed, type "here together" in the
It
chat.
ain't gonna
or
work
just
in
try a
this
few emotes
chat,
that are
all
very
right?
popular.
It's already long gone. Look at this, dude.
Okay.
This is insane. Good thing you only allowed the here together messages to come through. There would have been some doozies. I'm glad we can keep this clean, you know. Yeah, there would have been. Oh yeah, I bet.
To see our future. Here it is.
Yeah, cringe. Yeah, all of this. The output is cringe, this guy says. Dude, I can't even imagine the amount of work that was put into this. Yeah, this is insane. This is really
Thank
cool.
you, Link, for all you have done for us.
ゼルダ姫、ありがとう。一緒に未来を作りましょう。
Yeah, I think this is, there's nothing left to do in Ocarina of Time. Oh, the frame rate's taking a hit right now. We should have input a better engine so it could render some of these frames. But yeah, that is really crazy.
So
At
that
this
is
point,
what we can do with arbitrary code execution. We really didn't modify anything about the game in advance. We really just pressed buttons on 4 controllers very quickly with the help of Tasbot and used glitches and built our way up to having more and more control over the game. The specific things we said along the game were beta content actually on the cartridge. That was really true. Those specific things were actually on the cartridge. But everything else, from the plot tying together the beta content to the whole finale sequence, was created by our team and injected into the game live through controller input. When people talk about arbitrary code execution or even just technical speedrunning in general, folks will often say, oh, they destroyed the game. We wanted to do the exact opposite. Instead of being destructive, we wanted to make Ocarina of Time more complete than it ever was before. To make real everything fans wished it would be or believed it might have been.
I'm down with that.
Far beyond that, to create something completely brand new that could have never been done in 1998, but still completely within the game. Over 25 people contributed to Triforce %, and we've been working on this since a week after the ACE exploit was found in November 2019. It has been such a long journey, but such a rewarding journey to finally get here. But this project goes far beyond us, the developers. We've been fortunate to have the opportunity to partner with some of the best content creators, as well as some of the hypest reactors. We're creating content about Triforce % that will be released in the coming hours and days. You're seeing them on screen here. Please go ahead and check out their channels.
I definitely want to see like what is left. Well, it looks like a lot of.
I want to give a big shout out to SGDQ for lending us their platform and helping us help them raise money for Doctors Without Borders.
I will finish it.
I'm not actually good enough at the game to do the ACE setup myself. To dwangoAC for giving me a chance when I first approached him about this in early.
This whole thing was very well done, very professional.
Most of all, to the fan community, whose dreams and dedication to this game are the foundation of this project. The community is the future, so let us create the future together. Thank you all so much for watching.
Forget my run. This was way better. What am I doing? You know? Yeah, so I'm totally down to get on call and just at least answer a couple questions. It doesn't have to be long. Yes, I'd love to hear it. Thank you so much for doing this. Let me turn you up a little bit.
Sure. I've got my video on, but you don't have to use it.
Okay. If not, that's fine. So, chat, can you hear the his voice just fine, or?
Yeah, I should be okay. Let me boost my mic just a bit. Should be a good.
Okay.
Nice. There we go.
Yeah. So I'd just love to hear about the project. This was obviously, if you're watching some of what I was saying, definitely a very nostalgic game to me. One of my favorite games growing up, and definitely one of my favorite games when it comes to any showcase of beta content or what the game has to offer. Basically like glitches. And this game, I don't think there's any game like this that has quite a robust community that does this kind of stuff. So yeah, if you just want to explain some of it.
Yeah, and this is really a huge team effort. I mentioned in chat that it was 25 people over the course of 2.5 years. But there's one core person who really pulled everything together. And it's interesting because we were sitting in a triangular formation on stage simply because of the protocols that were required. We each had to be 6 feet apart from one another. And yet it worked out surprisingly well because Soren, who acted as our director, represented the Triforce of Power. Save State, who had the capacity to play the game perfectly in ways that the rest of us could not, represented the Triforce of Courage. And I brought together a large number of resources that had immense knowledge in particular areas and represented the Triforce of Wisdom. And it really took a huge team to pull something this big off.
Yeah, clearly. How long did it take you? When did you start this project, and what did it look like when you first started this? Like, what were some of the ideas that you had, and how did it transform into what it transformed into, I guess?
So I acted as somewhat of the executive producer. Soren had the vision of what he wanted to show. And from talking to him when he first approached me about the idea, he had wanted to do this from before Ace was found in Ocarina of Time. He knew early on that he would love to find a way to put the Triforce in. And there's apparently even a post of him saying that long before Ace was discovered in the game. So as soon as it was in late 2019, he started a GitHub repo, approached me at MagFest. I was invited as a guest at MagFest 2020, and he approached me and said, "Hey, I want to do this project." And I thought he was a little crazy, but we started talking through it. He said, "Hey, I want to keep this very secretive. I don't want a lot of people to know about it." Like, okay, well, that's not how we've been doing projects lately, but we can try.
Right.
And then it exploded from there. But Soren in particular just absolutely had this passion to see this project go through, and was largely the driving force behind the plot and the initial steps of finding a runner, in this case Save State, who had the real-time skills to get everything aligned perfectly, which to this date, Save State on the team is the only person who's managed to do it.
Wow.
So it really took everybody.
Yeah, that is incredible. So exactly how long did it take again? Just when you started the initial project till when it was finished? Like, what was that exact time?
We say 2.5 years, but it was
Okay.
in 2020, the day after the Ace in Triforce. I'm sorry, the Ace in. Boy, I just totally said that wrong. We've been trying so hard to not utter the word Triforce for so many months because we called it Beta Showcase. We didn't want to expose the Triforce.
Right.
But yeah, since right after that Ace discovery in late 2019 till now. So
Wow.
a solid 2.5 years of effort. We've slowly pulled people we knew we could trust to not leak the, anything really, the
Right.
contents of the run, the source code, since we have to be really careful about Nintendo.
Right. Yeah, I cracked that joke at the end, but I'm sure there's a lot of discussion on how to avoid any potential problem, right?
Oh yeah, and really the challenge here is, on the one hand, I'm an open source advocate. I've been part of the North Bay Linux users group and an advocate of Linux for a number of years now. I've been the president of that organization for quite some time as an advocate of open source software, and we would love to release this as open source. The reality is, if we did release this, it would immediately get nailed because we did have assets, both from within Ocarina of Time, that we repurposed and reused, as well as assets from other Nintendo properties. And to release that would be legal suicide. So
Right.
the best we can do, we did release a GitHub project. It has all of the assets we could release. For instance, you'll find a lot of the models that we put together that were custom that are in there. But anything that contains Nintendo assets, we simply cannot distribute for legal reasons. Now, we still don't know if Nintendo is going to be okay with this. Their legal team has consistently shown a distinct lack of a sense of humor. If they were to actually sue us, though, it would look pretty bad because we really did start with a completely unmodified cartridge that really was the gold 1.0 release of Ocarina of Time in the United States. It was a real original Nintendo 64 with an expansion pack, I will admit. But there wasn't any modification to that console other than tapping the RGB lines to get a clean analog signal. So we started from just playing their game, and through a series of extremely complicated button presses, presented what you saw on screen. As a result, as long as the ROM itself isn't being distributed, or basically what inputs were being sent to Tasbot, in theory, a legal team doesn't actually have anything to come after us with.
I can't even imagine how would you even proceed with something like that? That'd be very odd. But yeah, is there anything you'd like to say?
Imagine what would happen. The backlash of news titles of Nintendo sues charity event.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I wouldn't put it past them. I'm not here to slander Nintendo, but they've been interesting in the past years. So before I ask a couple questions that I have, is there anything else you'd like to say about
Oh,
this
there's so many
project?
more things I
Okay.
could say, but I think more than anything, what you guys just witnessed, there were multiple people in the chat on this Twitch stream saying, "You're about to cry." And I can't tell you, the emotion in that room was so strong that not only did Here Together become a catchphrase throughout the rest of the event, it spread to other media because we've all gone through this 2.5 years of pandemic as well. Not a full 2.5 years, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
This project was born out of a time of isolation. And for us to be able to come here together virtually and physically in those ways really topped off something that was a passion project, especially for Soren, in ways that I didn't predict ahead of time. I could never have guessed that people at the end of Games Done Quick in the finale would be just spamming Here Together over and over again. The fact that this created something so much bigger than any of us could have done on ourselves is just awesome. And then the other aspect of what drives me to do these things, we raised over $227,000 from just the donation incentive to get this run shown, plus a couple thousand shirts. We're not sure about the number. That's a couple more $1,000 to the Doctors Without Borders Foundation, MSF. That charity effort is what drives me to do this content. And as of now, with all of that in play, we're at about 1.3 million that we've helped raise for various different charities in the Tasbot community over the last few years. So all I got to say is that's what drives me.
That is incredible. And yeah, to hear kind of the backstory and how it kind of arose from the pandemic and everything, it does make it a lot more emotional seeing the actual ending of this. And that's, like I said, incredible job. And thank you for doing this. I have a couple questions. I would love to know. So you said you put, were there models? I might have been confused with this. Models that were used outside of the actual game, or because, okay, so everything was done with original hardware. How did you go about the voices, or different character models? And this might be really in depth and maybe way too complicated to explain. Is there a very dumbed down version?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
So I will say that it can be a little overwhelming because all these different concepts are hard. Even with Soren taking an extended amount of time to explain, well, hey, we're moving this rock and we're doing these things, and you know what? It's all just words. It doesn't translate into something tangible you can really understand, even when we're explaining it in real time. But to try to simplify as much as I can, what we did was nothing more and nothing less than play the game in the original console exactly as the original developers wrote it, and exactly as the original hardware developers designed the hardware. And the reason I say it that way is we started playing the game just the same way you would on your couch. The only thing that's different is that at a certain point, Save State, who is extremely talented, moved Link in certain ways to preserve values in memory that represented where he was facing, objects he was holding. Link, I'm talking about Link as he. And then Save State positioned various things in certain ways, and then they managed to trigger a pause screen at an exact place that Tasbot took over. At that pause screen, Soren flipped a switch. I, running Tasbot, instructed Tasbot to send data at a rather slow pedestrian rate, and it caused Link to just spaz all over the place.
Right.
That happened at that exact moment because the very first thing we did after having Tasbot take control is looked at what was called the Wonder Item. It's an item that triggered an exploit based on all of the movement that Save State had done prior to that point. They had lined up memory in a way that allowed us to copy addresses from the controller, or like data from the controller addresses, into memory. And we used that tiny little foothold to get one instruction every frame, basically. And even then, it was kind of half of an instruction. and slowly write data to a portion of memory, and then execute that bootloader, and that was bootloader 1, and then do it again at a higher rate with bootloader 2, and then at a higher rate with bootloader 3, and then at a higher rate with bootloader 4, which we then use to load the hyperspeed bootloader, or hyperspeed block transfer program. And at that point, everything was ready for us to get off of all 4 controller ports and use only ports 2 through 4. So we switched control of controller port 1 back to save state. They continued to play the game. And in the background, I ran the next portion of the script, which started sending data over this hyperspeed loader. So it's kind of a 3-stage process to get there, but you'll see if you watch the video that I gave save state a thumbs up, and then they continued on into the house to reset some things that got messed up by the glitch after that point. So long and the short of it, we just pressed a whole lot of buttons to get us to a point where we effectively created a network of sorts between Tasbot and the video game console with the capacity to write data into the expansion pack memory, which is not used on Ocarina of Time. That allowed us to, over the next approximately 7 minutes, continue to load data into the game, into the game while it was running, without it actually doing much to drop frame rates. That's how we stored all of the various different assets that were on there. Everything you saw that we did that was not pulling data directly from the ROM, in other words, the cartridge, was pointed to the addresses in the expansion pack. If we wanted audio, the Nintendo 64 has decent audio capacity for playing back audio samples. So we simply created audio files with Zelda's wonderful voice acting, absolutely fantastic, copied that into the expansion pack, and at the appropriate time, told the Nintendo 64 to play it back.
Wow. This is a lot for me. I'm sure my chat is also a little bit amazed by how this whole thing arose, and just what you had to do to get to this point is mind blowing. It's very awesome. Were there any potential issues when you were doing this? Were there? Did you have like a plan if something were to go wrong when you started these things up, or how did that discussion happen, and what were your plans if something bad did happen?
So we had about 1.5 MB, based on a question in chat, we had about 1.5 megabytes, I believe, in total. It's a 4 megabit cartridge, and trying to convert between megabit and megabyte gets confusing. But anyway, so we had a chunk of data that we had to get copied over, and it couldn't be corrupt. If it was corrupt, it would be bad. So we put in several hedges to try to prevent something bad from happening. One of them being, since we're going through loading zones that can disrupt the ability for us to transmit data between Tasbot and the console. So Soren implemented a rumble response back when the console was not happy with the data that it got because it failed a CRC, a cyclical redundancy check, basically a verification that the data was copied correctly. When it communicated back through the rumble ports to say, hey, I didn't get that right, we would resend that file. And that actually happened quite a few times on stage. I saw it with my own eyes that it had happened while we were there. We knew that was going to happen when save state walked through doors, so we planned accordingly. We had backup strategies. We had warp points added in where you could press certain buttons to recover from a game crash. We had a glitch that we actually didn't mean to trigger. I don't know what the right word for this is. Not really a glitch. When save state was setting up the initial setup to lock the camera, the lock didn't quite take place right. So we had to go back and do it again, but it wasn't noticeable, and people probably just thought it was part of the setup. So we had ways of recovering from a missed angle when save state was doing their part. So at each point, we had strategies to recover in case something went wrong in the live performance. And really, credit and also strife with Soren. Soren treated this at the same quality level as a TED Talk. I'm here just ad hoc rambling, and you're getting the raw me that's just talking about things as they come to my mind. On stage, we each very carefully memorized all of our lines, had our deliveries down of exactly what we were going to say at every point, and it shows. Obviously, that helped. We had even rehearsed what would happen if we had a crash and what we would say. So the amount of preparation for the live performance also went into ensuring that the run went smoothly. I believe that was the question you asked, but if I got off track, please feel free to ask the question differently.
That's pretty much it. And you answered it by saying you had fail safes. Essentially, you had already planned out potential problems, and those problems you already had solutions for them if they things went awry, which is incredible to me, because you had to basically understand what could go wrong and then problem solve for hypothetical situations that could arise. So the amount of planning that went into just that, yes, it's I can't say it enough. It's mind blowing, and yeah, it's awesome.
It did come at a consequence, and a pretty substantial one at that. The reality is that because we wanted to keep this project secret, especially Soren in particular was very, very intent and very insistent that this project not be leaked in any way, and it wasn't. But because he was so concerned about that particular aspect, it did cause a little bit of strife, and it made it difficult for me because, for instance, I have not been able to stream on Twitch in many weeks.
Wow.
I could not possibly do anything publicly, and unfortunately, it did impact me in that way. But at the same time, I feel like the sacrifice overall has absolutely been worth it.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah. Let me look at the chat. We'll try to get a couple questions, then I'll let you. I'll let you go here, so I'm not holding you too
You're
long.
not holding me up. I'm far more worried about holding up your stream because there's a lot of people here who are probably going, "Well, why are we listening to this guy talk about this project?"
No, it looks very positive. People are loving this. So, is there any question that you just want to respond to if you're in the chat?
I am in the chat. And by the way, tag me. I will not be able to keep up if you send a lot at once, but I am going to address the one about the Zelda chat. We actually talked to the original voice actress who played, who voiced Zelda in the United States.
Wow.
And for some interesting contractual reasons that are probably obvious in retrospect, that was not going to happen. But her sister, that's a different story. Having said that, at the end of the day, we chose not to go that route because we found a voice actress that was a better fit for the voice we were looking for, and I'm very, very pleased with the response.
Nice.
And Zero, our voice actor for Japanese, was also pretty amazing.
Wow.
Oh, thank you guys for saying that you're here for me. So, how did Twitch chat work? I can answer that pretty quickly. This is not the first time we've done silly things with Twitch chat. And by not the first time, I mean really not the first time. We first shoved Twitch chat through a Super Nintendo, well, technically through a Super Game Boy at first, with Pokemon Plays Twitch. Not Twitch Plays Pokemon, that's a different project, but we did Pokemon Plays Twitch back in the day. And that was a different time. That was a different year. That was a different era. We did only the most basic filtering, and a couple of N-bombs ended up on there that we didn't catch and some things like that. So then we used a totally different method of Twitch interaction later on with Mashbot. We had a physical box built around a Nintendo DS playing Scribblenauts that we were stabbing the screen with a stylus from a mechanized motor. Never do that, by the way. It's a terrible idea. But that time we used Twitch chat to vote, and it also broke because we found that we overwhelmed Twitch's servers. So we already knew that we were going to have some problems with Twitch chat on Twitch's side. And we'd also already done some experiments just trying to see how far we could push Twitch chat. And one of those experiments is this is going to take just a couple more seconds to explain, and you're going to have to forgive me if any Twitch engineers are listening. So my moderators got together and decided that the paint by numbers thing I have on my own Twitch channel needed to be faster. So paint by numbers being you type a color like red and an offset 5,3, and it would put a red pixel there, like r.place or r/place. So we built this out, and it was great. And then people started building scripts to send more than one dot per line, and then so on and so forth. And it got to the point where we were getting like slowly developed pictures over the course of a little while. But they decided, let's see how far we can push Twitch chat. So they started an encoding mechanism that did the same thing in Unicode, and then realized that there were, I think I had about 7 moderators that were online at the time, and each moderator account could send quite a bit of data. And by the time they were done, each of them were sending chat messages that contained pixel location information that was then picked up and placed on my screen. And what happened was they played a movie. I actually played Martin's Marble Machine X video on my paint by numbers square by sending a massive number of full-length Unicode messages through Twitch chat, at which point we looked at our logs later and discovered we were using somewhere in the vicinity of 7% of worldwide Twitch traffic in one channel.
Well, at least it wasn't 8%, right? That is insane. Yeah.
So later on, I did have a visit with the folks at Twitch headquarters, and they said, "Yeah, we know you did it. Just don't do it again."
Nice. Well,
but so we know a lot about destroying Twitch chat.
Yeah.
We've never done it again. Please don't try this. And this was back when they had rooms too. So anyway, long and the short of it, this time around, we wanted to do something where we could show something on screen, but make absolutely certain that there were no swear words. It's a different world. We don't want a post George Floyd, for instance, world to have a bunch of slurs slapped on there.
Right.
And people have done things in names with their usernames that are not great. So to avoid any of those problems, we went through an extensive swear filter that happened in Python and connected to the Twitch IRC, went through Python, cleaned up, and only passed things to Tasbot that were already vetted. On top of that, those things that were passed in had all the characters swapped. So even people who had questionable usernames, they actually still got shown, but your username was corrupted.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So if we watch back, we can see some corrupted looking usernames because of that filter. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you had specific body parts, for instance, in your name, those would be replaced with just random letters or numbers.
Okay.
So sorry, folks, we had 69 on the screen, but you couldn't put it in your username.
Darn. I mean, that is obviously a very smart way to go about it, considering there is very questionable things that people could pass through. And given how much time this has taken you, how it is a big passion for everyone that's been working on it, you want to keep it on course for your message.
So that message is actually the biggest thing I want to talk to you about that Twitch part. We had a lot of ideas. Rebecca Tripp, she had come up with the idea of stars in the sky representing each chatter who was saying something, similar to the hands that are used in the omnibar and in various interstitial portions of the GDQ streams. And we wanted to incorporate something like that into the game, but I really wanted to have some kind of message. And Soren proposed we're all together. And I thought, man, that's really long and people aren't going to be able to type it right. It's got an apostrophe in it.
Complicated,
Yeah. And so I proposed to simplifying it down to just the word together. And he's like, well, that doesn't have any content or meaning. And so we finally, after a fair bit of discussion, settled on here together. And that was we did not know it at the time. That was the perfect set of words. We couldn't have guessed at that moment how impactful those words would be. But to answer your question, any message that we saw coming over IRC that contained here together or particular emotes we had already pre-selected and programmed into the game so that the graphics were present would show on screen. Now, you might have noticed that it was like, da-da-da-da-da-da, and then it would just go blank and the sky would be empty. I was sitting behind that laptop watching what was coming in from Twitch. Y'all broke Twitch chat. Bad. It was so
I figured that's
overwhelmed.
kind of what was happening. Yeah. It was trying to probably just refresh and you were having issues with how many messages were actually coming through. Right. So
yeah. So I'm way behind, but the only other thing I'll mention about how the messages were encoded, we just used a protocol. You can find the full source code of how we did it on our GitHub, which is linked from gettriforce.link. Didn't want to get too distracted there because I want to keep people on your channel and not send them off to someplace else. But it was very much set up to say, okay, this person has this emote, which we know about. It maps to this value when we're sending the data across the controller port. The game then had code to parse that and say, okay, I need to show this many of this.
This is I didn't expect this stream to be going this way today, but As much as I do love this, it's really awesome to be able to talk. I'm not as technically savvy as probably many of you in here, but I know many of you are, so it's probably very interesting as well for you. Test. Any luck?
Hey. Yeah. So I don't know if any of you use Linux, but I have an 8-core processor that hit a load average of 19. So Discord.
I assume that's a lot or a problem.
Yeah, I had Discord was using twice as much CPU capacity as I had. It's better now.
All right.
So where did we leave off? I will answer as many questions as you're willing to take the time to talk to me about.
As long as you didn't want to finish any point that you were making before it started to cut out, I believe Chad asked a question I would like to know as well. When did it shift from being beta content to injected content, if that makes sense?
So that it makes sense, and it's a hard question to answer, and one we grappled with extensively. How do you make a compelling story with assets that don't actually have anything to do with one another and stitch it together into a narrative that looks good on stage without making everybody angry? So we had to figure out ways to, for instance, show the R-Wing, and that was easy. The R-Wing's like the first thing out of the gate we show because it's sitting right there in the cartridge. We can call it, we don't have to wait very long for any fresh assets that we're adding to the process to upload or be transferred. So that was an obvious one. But okay, well, now you've got an R-Wing. Well, now what are you going to show? Well, we happen to start near the Lost Woods, so we can fabricate this northwest, southwest exit and then stitch together Kokiri Ferry. Okay, well, now we've gotten into code that we added, right? If you were to go play your original copy of Ocarina of Time and you got lost out of a north exit and then lost out of a west exit and then lost out of a south exit and then lost out of a west exit and went back into the Lost Woods, I'm so sorry to disappoint you. You will not hear the dee-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee.
Darn.
Sorry for you. That's something we added, right? That was an element that allowed us to create a reason for why there would be a beta Kokiri. Now, the beta Kokiri was in the game. So if you go to our FAQ page on gettriforce.link, you'll see everything that was truly beta content on the cartridge and things that were content that weren't necessarily on the cartridge, but were directly from Nintendo, verified as something that was intended to be released, but then retracted. In other words, cut content that they had done advertisements for. For instance, the Triforce room is modeled on what was seen in a commercial that Nintendo themselves ran.
Okay. So that was an inspiration from something that was already shown. So it wasn't necessarily in the vanilla game, but that was potentially assets or something that would have been used.
Correct, yes.
Okay. Question, what about the interaction with the Gerudo when you learn the Song of Time? What was the story behind that?
Now this is going to be a question more for Soren because he wrote that portion. If I understand your question correctly, what was the what drove us to incorporate that plot line?
Yes, yeah.
Largely rumors of things that had happened, a desire to kind of show things that might have happened from their perspective, and getting the dialogue and the writing in a way that seemed authentic was definitely a hard challenge for Soren. There's no doubt about it. That was not easy.
Yeah, I can't imagine it was. Let's see here. Fish out now. Are there any questions that you see that you would like to answer, or I can keep trying to shoot a couple
so
your
what
way?
Percentage of the showcase was actual beta content? I don't really know how to give it a percentage. I would say a lot, but certainly by the time you get to the end, there's nothing left. It's all been replaced by fan theories.
Right.
If we picked the other wishes, nothing would have happened. They don't go anywhere. We only built the one end scene you see for space sizes issues.
So the inspiration with the end before you actually get the Triforce, where did this inspiration come from? Was this just rumors or?
Oh, the inspiration to get the Triforce?
Yes, when you're climbing up.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was so the method of getting there. That was combining several other elements that had been kind of discussed. But the actual Triforce itself has, of course, been something that has been thought to have been originally part of the game because Nintendo released trailers showing it, and then got pulled. And so this was one of the really core parts of a lot of the early disassembly efforts in the late 90s, the early discoveries of what was still on the cartridge, things like that. And a lot of the fan theories were around, well, how do we actually get the Triforce? And you've seen possibly some other videos in the past that purported to do it, but they usually did it by going into a cutscene and they weren't actually able to interact with it, and it never looked like what it was in the commercial and things like that. So we definitely had this core idea of, okay, here's the Triforce, the room, the way it's supposed to look. How do we build up a reason for Link to have the whole Triforce? So that worked backward from there of, okay, well, what might make it seem legitimate? What would it take for that to happen? Well, you probably want all of the sages to bless you for one thing, and the sages aren't going to give that away for free. So what elements do we need to have so that Link has all of the elements of the Triforce in his heart before he reaches for the actual Triforce? So all of the story just sort of unraveled backward from that point.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. A quick question. It's kind of a technical one. What was the maximum bandwidth of all 4 of the controllers injecting data?
For that, I'm going to take you to the Retro Game Mechanics Explained channel. I worked with IsoFreeze along with the rest of the team to create an explainer video, and that video goes through the different data rates as we moved up the stack. I believe it did top out at 5,400 bytes a second, but I'd have to double check what our max data rate was. Of course, the max effective is a little bit trickier because we would occasionally send data, walk through a door, and then have to resend the same data. So I don't want to. You could even potentially send more data, but then you wouldn't be able to play a game at the same time. And your upper bound of how much data you can send is much, much lower on the Nintendo 64 than it is with the Super Nintendo. And that's largely because the Nintendo 64 has an entire chunk of hardware logic around those controller ports that prevents us from having a higher data rate. Whereas on the Super Nintendo, we can just ask anytime we like for input from the controllers. In fact, to the point that on the Super Nintendo, my streams, if you've ever watched them on Twitch, all of the audio you hear playing in the background, all the music, all that music is being sent as controller button presses through the Super Nintendo controller ports into its APU, and then sent out from there into my soundboard. So we're just sending, I think it's about 1.4 megabit a second is the data rate of uncompressed data.
Okay. I definitely do not understand how that works, but I'm sure people in the chat appreciate that.
In other words, if we didn't have the expansion pack to write things to in advance, we would have had to sit there and wait for 3 minutes before walking into a cutscene. We'd have to stand in the door, unload and cull all the stuff behind us, use that memory to then write the next scene, and just sit there and wait for Tasbot to transfer it. It wouldn't have been very pleasant. Instead, we had the advantage of this expansion pack memory that Ocarina of Time does not use, but also doesn't care about its presence. And that allowed us to put all of those assets there as we were doing earlier parts of the story, so that while they're fighting the Running Man, the last of the audio dialogue from Zelda and Link is being copied in.
Right, so you can just kind of call it as you need it.
Yep.
From there, okay. A couple more questions here. If you see anything you want to answer, feel free. I'm looking through a couple here.
Oh, the music was largely composed by Soren, by Rebecca Trips. There was also some music that was on the original cartridge. You can look in the FAQ for how that's split up.
Okay. Let me see if there's anything else here.
Running Man AI was not part of the game. That was something we added in. Also, I do have to agree, the music was absolutely fantastic.
I did like the music as well. Very well done.
Especially the soaring portions at the end were very, very good.
Question about the sorry to interrupt, the mask usage and the power up, that was all beta, I believe, if I heard correctly, right? That was
Yeah.
to be incorporated, but then later that was kind of shelved for a later time for Majora's Mask, correct?
So there was definitely a lot of stuff on the cartridge. There was a lot of code around the masks, and obviously all of it was much better fulfilled in Majora's Mask. So they did these early experiments, and they didn't quite stitch everything together. So we were kind of like forensics. If you've ever read source code that you didn't write, especially source code with no comments or comments in another language, it can be really hard to understand intent. So we had to work with, okay, what did the intent of this function, how is it supposed to be used? It's never called, so we know this function is not used anywhere in the game. What does it do? And just reverse engineer all of that. Now, I am not that skill set. That was other people that came long before me. In many cases, long before this project even existed. Keep in mind that people have been working on a disassembly of the game for quite some time. And interestingly, the Space World 97 overdump and the other dumps that happened in the last year were not used in, like the Giga Leak was not used here. We only used decompilation that had happened prior to those releases by some chance. So a lot of people had gone through, looked at the code, figured out what was there, and had all of these hints of, well, this is how they seem to be using the masks, but then they just never implemented it in the game, and we now know they just saved that for Majora's Mask. But it didn't stop us from tying some functions together, adding a little bit of our own code on top to pull everything in, add the dialogue to say, hey, this is what this does, and implement it.
Okay. A couple questions that I would like to see answered. So I think Chad asked if the half steps, full steps were on the cartridge. You could adjust half step. Well, you're talking flats, sharps, stuff like that, correct, Chad? I believe that's what he's asking about the
Of
music
course.
that was
Not only
implemented.
was it on the cartridge, you could do it with a scarecrow. You can go do that right now,
Yep,
actually.
yep. So I guess to tie onto that with the song that required, the Song of Time required the full or the sharps flats. Was that implemented or just simply inspired with the usage of the sharps and flats function that was already in the game?
We were able to use everything in the game for that because they had two separate systems. One usually only used for the scarecrow, and one used for prompts. We simply called the one for the scarecrow at a prompt and used it appropriately, and the game had no complaints.
Okay. Another question here. How did you make it so the game would be able to handle the high poly Breath of the Wild models?
Easy. I have some bad news for you. Zelda's legs are all one bone, including her feet.
So they're just boards. Okay.
You never see Zelda move below the waist.
Oh, that would explain why she hovers like a ghost. Okay. Yeah.
So now, at the same time, I think there are 6 bones in Link's hair because we needed that.
Let me get to this point. Let me see if I can find where Zelda is walking up.
So someone's asking what's next. Please, and maybe I got to be careful how I say this. I did not come to this channel or hop on to advertise my community, but
Please feel free. Please do.
Okay. Someone asked, what's next? What do we do after this? And I have the same question. I don't know how we go up from here. When you have given the equivalent of a TED Talk, how do you take that to the next level? What do you possibly do to go farther than that? And I don't know yet. So give us your ideas. Head on over to discord.gg/Tasbot. Hop into our community. It's a wonderful place. The only weird thing about it is that we are a PG server, so we keep language to a minimum. It's amazing how much better people behave when you do that.
Right.
So I'm just going to type that in chat if that's okay.
Okay, I think Chad did. Any links that you want, feel free to post anything. It's appreciated.
Oh, right. That's our Discord community, and here's the get triforce.link. That's the main website. So if you are, that's okay, Rhea. I know you like swearing. We have a channel just for you. There's a channel we allow swearing on. But, you know, it's kind of interesting when you're having technical discussions and you kind of make people not drop F-bombs. All of a sudden, they start treating each other a whole lot better. It's kind of funny. Anyway.
Alrighty. One last question, and then we will wrap this up. If there's anything that you want to finish up on from the questions, or even if you just want to have a final statement about this project.
I guess the final statement I would have is I am extremely blessed to have had Soren approach me at MagFest 2020 to say, hey, I have this idea. I don't have the hardware or the resources to make this happen at a GDQ. Can you help? And I just was impressed with how diligent Soren was. Soren had a passion for this project that went beyond what you find for most people. And if you've ever played something like Cave Story, you can see Cave Story was a passion product where the graphics and the music and the story, the writing, the actual programming was all done by one person. And yes, we had 25 people who went into making this. And yes, we absolutely had to have save state to press the buttons fast enough because we couldn't do it or accurately enough. But without Soren, without that power he brought to take all of those elements and put them together, he wrote a lot of music. He wrote a lot of code. He even wrote firmware for adjusting Tasbot to handle the feedback from the rumble packs. He stretched himself in so many multidisciplinary ways that I am astounded. Anytime you are working on a project with a lot of perfectionists, you're going to have strife, and this project was no different. We did butt heads at times, but at the same time, I have immense respect for his passion for things being perfect and for taking his vision and expressing it in a way that became something that really did bring a lot of us here together.
Wow. Well, I just want to say thank you. My community says thank you as well. I'm sure they're all very impressed with this. Very, very thankful to have you on. Thank you so much for answering some of our questions. And I cannot wait to see what will be done next. So thank you so much.
As I sign off, it's all right if I pass over my Twitch
Yes,
page?
feel free. Yep.
I am over at twitch.tv/dwangoAC, as I mentioned a little earlier, and if you missed it, I haven't been streaming because I had to do this project in secret, which meant that time I normally would have used for streaming was allocated to not streaming.
Right.
It was allocated to everything else it took to pull this off. If you're willing to hop on over there, that would be absolutely fantastic. I'd love to get on a stream here soon to give some more of the behind the scenes. Also, if you are in Europe, go to May Contain Hackers, end of the month. It is a hacker convention where I will be giving a presentation on what we did, going through the technical details of what is stale reference manipulation, how did that alone result in everything becoming possible. I'm also going to be at Rocket Beans in Germany and at ESA in Sweden and MagWest in California. So if any of those events are interesting and you want to know more about what we did here, swing on by.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. I'm going to be signing off here. So once again, thank you.
Thank you so much. I am also signing off. Have a wonderful day, chat, and thanks for the wonderful questions.
Okay, well, that was Dwango. That was that was wonderful. That was great to have him on. I didn't expect that to be the way I would be going about the rest of the stream. That's awesome. I mean, this is always fascinating to me, and some of my favorite stuff has always been like ZFG's showcase of this game and a few others, and you know, to see this, definitely awesome. And super thankful to have Dwango on here. And I know there's many others that worked on this project. All right. Thanks, everyone, for watching. It feels good to be back. More streams on the way. Thank you again, Dwango, and incredible showcase. This is probably my favorite run I've seen, honestly, at a GDQ.